Hello, everyone, and welcome to Berean Ministries, where we search the scriptures daily. First of all, Happy New Year 2025 has just begun, and it began on January 1st at midnight on the secular calendar. And that is the topic for today, the secular calendar versus the Torah, the biblical calendar. So let's dive in. The calendar that we're most familiar with is the solar calendar, which is based on the 365 days that it takes for the Earth to experience a cycle of the sun. It consists of 12 months, and the days begin at midnight. And as for the months, well, January comes from the Latin Januarius, which attributes this month to the Roman god Janus, who was the god of new beginnings, change. So it makes sense why the first month would be attributed to this god, and why even to this day we have New Year's resolutions for New Year, New You. And that's that one. So that's January for Janus, and here's 2 through 6. All the way through June, these months are named after Roman gods. And so ending with not June 6th, June being the 6th month, and September being the 7th month, October the 8th month. So as we know, these months are not the 7th and 8th respectively. They are now the 9th and 10th. Why is that? Well, Julius Caesar, ever heard of that guy? Or Augustus, his successor. So these two Roman emperors just made their way into the calendar and pushed the 7th month back to the 9th and the 8th month back to the 10th. So that's why nothing makes sense anymore. But this makes sense. The word month and the word moon are related. That makes sense. And what else makes sense? It's related to the lunar cycle, because the months are about 29 and a half days, a little bit longer, and a little bit longer than 4 weeks. Also, the word Monday comes from the word moon as well. And the word Tuesday comes from Tiu, Wednesday from Woden. These are Anglo-Saxon Norse gods. Thursday from Thor. Thor makes a little bit more sense in Dutch, where it's Donderdag. Thursday is Donderdag because Thor is the god of lightning and the thunder. And then we have Friday attributed ambiguously either to Frigg or Freya. And then Saturday from Saturn, which is a Roman god again. So why do we do this? Because in other languages, they don't do that. In Vietnamese, February is Tháng Hai, which is month 2. In Hebrew, Yom Shani, or day second, is what they call Monday. So why do we do this? On the secular calendar, is it against the first commandment? You shall have no other gods before me. When we say January, February, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, are we breaking this first commandment? I don't know. I'm not convinced. Just saying the word Thursday doesn't exactly elevate Thor as supreme or make him more important, or it doesn't do that much, especially considering that nowadays people just say it without thinking, myself included. I know that Thursday comes from Thor, but every time I say Thursday, I'm not even thinking about Thor. So are we breaking the first commandment? Probably not. But it's an interesting question, so leave your thoughts in the comments, please, if you would. What do you think? What should we do? Should we have a reform? Should we change the names of our days and months? Let us know in the comments. What does the Torah say? Well, let's start with Genesis chapter 1, verse 5, where it says in Hebrew, Vayikra Elohim la'or yom v'lachoshech kara laila. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Vayihi erev, vayihi voker. There was evening and there was morning. Day 1, Yom Echad. So it says there was evening and there was morning. So there was evening first. And that's why new days begin at sunset. They begin with the evening. So evening to evening, or sunset to sunset, is the biblical way to separate a day. If we look at Genesis chapter 2, we see God separating the 7th day. So God finished on the 7th day his work that he did, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work that he did. This is a literal translation. That's why it sounds weird. It's a literal translation made by yours truly. God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because in it he rested. He sanctified it. He set it apart. He made it holy. We have here kuf daled shin, to sanctify or to make holy. And in Hebrew, this root, kuf daled shin, means set apart or dedicated as sacred. So God sanctified it. He made it holy, He set it apart, and He dedicated that seventh day as sacred. And here this word, shin betaf, as in Shabbat, shin betaf, also known as Shabbos, Yom Shabbat, Sabbath day or day of rest. Shabbat begins at sunset on Friday and ends at sunset on Saturday. And this root, shin betaf, means to stop working or to rest. Remember, folks, translation is not an exact science, especially from Hebrew. So sometimes you'll see Shabbat, or this root here, shin betaf, translated as celebration, or in Spanish, fiesta. So remember, it's not an exact science, but the point here is that we are resting on Shabbat. And we're keeping it holy. One of the 10 Commandments is remember the Sabbath, to keep it holy, which has a lot of parallels with the verse that we just saw, where God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. As we see here, remember the day to keep it holy. It says, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho. Whereas God blessed the seventh day, Vayivarech Elokim et Yom HaShvi'i Vayikadesh oto. So we have a verb, we have the et, we have the Yom, and then we have the Shabbat with the shin betaf, and with no coincidence, the seventh day is shin bet, shin betaf, no coincidences there. And then there's the kuf daled shin for the holy, kuf daled shin for the holy, and the it on this top part here is implied right here with that vav. The oto and the vav here are making the direct object it, but that's probably TMI. Alright, the lunar calendar. So we see the lunar calendar in Exodus chapter 12, which is where we see the Passover. So the Passover begins in that first month, the first month, lunar calendar. It says in verse 2, this month is to you a head of months. It is first to you of the months of the year. So in Hebrew, the root chet daled shin means month or new. Chet daled shin, chet daled shin. Chet daled shin, month, chodesh, or chadash, new. So in Hebrew, these roots are consonants, and the vowels are what change for the most part. So chodesh and chadash, the difference is the vowels. O and e, and here we have a and a. Chodesh and chadash. And that's why the new month begins with the new moon. Whoa, where'd it go? And in Leviticus chapter 23, we see God's appointed times. Times that He separates and makes holy. Important holidays, holy days, days that are set apart, sanctified, sacred, such as Shabbat. Leviticus chapter 23 verse 1 says, the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and tell them, these are the Lord's appointed times, which He will proclaim as convocations or assemblies of holiness. They are my appointed times. Verse 3, 6 days you will do no work. And, I wish. 6 days you will do work, and on the seventh day is a Shabbat Shabbaton, a holy assembly. All work you will not do, there's the no work. It is the Lord's Shabbat in all your dwellings. So on the seventh day you will do no work. 6 days you work, and on the seventh you do not. Note, the repetition in Shabbat Shabbaton is emphasizing that it is a day of rest. So some translations say it is a Shabbat of rest. It's just repetition for emphasizing that you will do no work. Verse 4, these are the Lord's appointed times, assemblies of holiness, that you will proclaim in their seasons. So again, this is a translation made by yours truly. Moed is often translated as feast or season. So these are the Lord's appointed times. These are the Lord's feasts or seasons. Translations may vary. Now, moed, translated as feast, might not always make so much sense because sometimes we not celebrate per se, but sometimes we observe a holiday, a holy day, by fasting. So that is definitely not a feast, but usually with fasting, a feast comes before and or after the fast, as we will see. Verse 5, in the first month of the 14th day of the month, between the two evenings, so there it is again, between the two evenings, is Pesach, Passover to the Lord. Now verses 6 through 44 have more of God's appointed times, Mo'adei Adonai. Verse 27 specifically, indeed the 10th day of this 7th month is the Day of Atonement, which we discuss in brevity. We briefly discuss in our Intro to Exodus video. Go ahead and click on that video. Check it out, where we talk a little bit about the Day of Atonement. It will be a holy assembly for you, and you will afflict your souls, and you will give offerings of fire to the Lord. So you will afflict your souls. There it is. That is known as fasting. This is where we fast, specifically on the 9th of the month in the evening. Shabbat Shabbaton it is for you, and you will afflict your souls on the 9th of the month in the evening. From evening to evening you will celebrate your Shabbat. So there it is again, evening to evening. Alright folks, that's enough for now on the calendar. Thank you for watching. The next video is on Asara B'Tevet, which means the 10th of Tevet, and this year it happens to fall on the 10th of January. Thank you for watching, folks, and have a good one.